wherever you are on your path, it's perfect because you can be doing really good work in the world and you can be doing really great healing and still be suffering at the same time.
Yeah, 100%.
And that as long as you are in the pursuit of freedom, that's enough.
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
I spent essentially 8 years kind of repeating the same pattern unconsciously. And it wasn't until there was enough pain, repetitive pain internally in my inner world, where I finally was able to wake up and start doing the healing work around intimacy and relationship. 10 years ago, I started to do healing work around other traumas, but I hadn't done it around intimacy and relationships with, my intimate partner. So it, the last 10 years has been an amazing journey of a lot of beautiful times and a lot of challenging, painful times where I got to just keep practicing, keep doing the work and showing up for myself. And it wasn't until about 2 years ago when I finally was able to say, okay, I've played this game and I've repeated this pattern many times now. The common denominator has been me. The results are I'm responsible for all the results I've created. And now I got to learn how to heal and do something differently inside of me if I want to create a different external result and if I want to have a different environment and a different feeling. And that's what I did a couple of years ago. I really dove into healing that kind of relationship wound, which tied back to childhood as well, which I've talked to you about. But and there was a moment after about 5 months of intensive therapy. I'm talking about, I've done 8-hour Saturday sessions with a therapist where we just go in deep and I do different exercises and healing and therapeutic experiences. And I've done that over and over again for the last 2 years consistently, not that long every Saturday, but every couple of weeks doing a session. And there was one session after about 5 months of doing this where I was in a lot of stress in a previous relationship where I finally, it's like all of it finally connected analytically and emotionally to my heart, where the pain disintegrated in my heart. I was feeling contractions kind of off and on and just kind of like a low level stress, not sure what to do. And it finally all connected where I felt peace. And I've had that feeling for the last 2 years. It's been amazing.
What I love that you're saying is that, first of all, that pain disintegrated into peace. Was that your exact words? I mean, it was just like poetic.
It literally felt like there was a ball of pain in my heart and chest for a period of time.
Yeah.
And then one day, I don't know how else to explain it. It felt like something unlocked in that pain center. Yeah. And it just felt like it was kind of moving throughout my body, but it was like just trickling and disintegrating. And then I was like, the pain literally in a moment went away. Now it took 5 months of intensive training and integration for me to feel it go away. But it was literally a moment when it happened and it didn't come back.
What do you think it was in that 5 months that allowed you to get to that moment?
I think it was I had a lot of emotional support with my coach / therapist. I changed something in my life for the first time that I'd never done before. And that was, I stopped abandoning myself. And for many, many years in relationships, I would abandon myself to please someone else's emotions and feelings. And I would change who I was. I would change my most authentic self to make someone else feel more comfortable or make someone happier or whatever it might be that they wanted. And the thing that I did is I loved being single because I felt peace. When I get into relationships, I wanted to feel peace.
Yep.
And I realized that it wasn't the other people, nothing wrong with the people I was choosing, but it just wasn't in full alignment of my highest self and my vision. And so I was too afraid to have someone not like me or love me or accept me. That was my biggest fear, was not being accepted by someone that, I had chosen to be in a relationship with. And therefore I wanted to, make sure they were happy and make sure they felt good and make sure they felt comfortable and all these things. But I would do that at the expense of my authentic self, my values, my vision, what I felt like my mission in life was at that time. And then I was the one that was suffering in the end when I would do that. So again, there was just never anyone else's responsibility but my own. I just didn't have the tools. I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't have the integration of how to implement that and sit with the uncomfortable feelings of someone I care about or I'm in a relationship with upset with me about essentially my identity, about who I am as a human being. And again, I just chose poorly based on a wound, based on of insecurity, based on a familiarity of what I was comfortable with, as opposed to being 100% courageous in who I am and communicating my values courageously, uh, knowing that it's not for everyone and being okay if someone doesn't want to be with me. And I think that was the lesson that I learned
Wow.
with Martha, where I was just like, okay, I'm going to essentially be alone for the rest of my life and be completely happy with that, or be 100% authentic to who my values are, to who I am as my vision, and align with someone who fully accepts me in that space. Otherwise, what am I doing if I have to constantly change and adapt and shift to and walk on eggshells to make someone accept and love me? That means they don't accept and love me. And so one of the things I said to Martha after about 3 months of dating, before we became like exclusively committed, we were hanging out a lot. And I did a few things differently in the dating phase that I'd never done before. But one of them was I was so honest about everything from my past and everything about my dreams for my future. And I was just like, I'm not going to hold back anything. And I think and I thought I would scare her away by just being truthful. But she was like, wow, it's really refreshing. And I was like, are you sure you accept someone who's this driven and who's got on a mission to help people and who has people around them all the time and, living this lifestyle? Are you sure you want to accept someone? And she was like, yeah, that's the person I've always been looking for. So I think it's just making sure that we're in alignment with the relationships in our career, our business partnerships, our intimate partners.
I'm going to take that even deeper though, because I think that, do you mind if I just describe what I witnessed just here?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, you're so major. I just witnessed the whole process of internal family systems, which, I'm obsessed with and we've talked about a lot, and I'll describe it here in your journey. And what happened was you wouldn't have been able to attract a woman that you were in alignment with if you weren't in alignment with how you refer to it as your authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to always attract our mirror reflection. Yeah. And so she swooped in fast. Actually, the last time you were on my podcast was when you just started dating her. I was like, he's single, ladies. And you're like, actually, this thing happened. And
I know. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't even want it. I was just like,
but it's also because you made, but also what you're defining is so profound for me in this moment, because I had this privilege of having like a little, I befriended Gabor Mate, who you've had on your podcast as well.
Great.
He's one of the most amazing humans. And he has this, and he and I got on a Zoom to talk about something that I was thinking about for my own therapeutic journey. And he's like, well, what's your intention in that? And I was like, oh, well, the intention is to heal some remnants of my childhood trauma. And he's like, okay. And he asked me a few more leading questions. And then he said, no, this isn't about the trauma. He's like, this is about you being in your authentic self.
Yes.
And when I heard that, I was like, it was one of those moments where you have that click, like that aha, like, holy man, you just nailed it. Of course, it was Gabor Mate to just be like the one to be like, boom. And that moment was such a catalyst, because we have to, the ways that you were in your previous relationships and what you were just defining are common qualities of those of us who have had childhood trauma. I want to care for, I want to manage, I want to make sure everybody else is good. I don't want to show my true cards because what if they don't love me? And, just the grasping and the almost not taking a lot on, all of it, all of the above. Right. And those qualities are all in the way. They're protector parts, protecting us from the shame and the fear of not having the attachment and the support and the safety that we needed when we were children. And so the journey that you underwent in your entire journey of the past 13 years since I've known you, but really that deep dive in the 5 months, what you were doing was you were really showing that protector part of you, that you were there. that
Yeah,
that that that,
absolutely.
that the adult resource Lewis was there for him.
And I think I might have told you this, but I just did so many different. I'm willing to do a lot of different exercises and methods to just see what opens up. And one of the exercises my coach gave me was create an environment where I'm alone and I'm in a meditative state, and to really go back and have a meaningful, loving, courageous conversation with my 5-year-old self, 5, 6, 7-year-old self, but put myself in the environment, physically, emotionally, mentally, where myself, is right in front of me. And I'm looking down at him and I'm connecting with him and I'm speaking to him eye to eye, face to face. And it was one of the most powerful exercises I've ever done, probably because I could see the uncertainty in my 5-year-old self. I could see the loneliness, the fear, the insecurity, the doubt, the worry, the concern, what does all this mean? Conversations with a 5-year-old brain, just trying to figure out what the point of all this is. And I could have a meaningful conversation with my 5-year-old self as my adult self, and I could parent and give myself what I actually needed and what I wanted in those times. And it was such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
I did it for about 30, 40 minutes. And at the end, I was just smiling because I was like, wow, you didn't know what was happening. You didn't know why you were here. You didn't know why these things were happening traumatically in your life. And yet you overcame it. And so I was just so proud of him. I was so grateful for him and for what he was able to do to survive, to get through, to make it to the next, stage of life. And I just was able to embrace my, childhood self and hug him and really put him in my chest and in my heart and feel his heartbeat and calm him down and then integrate him inside of me.
Yep.
And kind of like infusing my childhood self in me.
That's right.
And feel peace and relaxed and calm and love and joyful.
Yeah.
And find the meaning from all the different challenges that happened.
Yeah.
And I think that was a beautiful exercise for me. And I recommend people doing that when the time is right, the season is right, to try it. Because it allowed me to just
what you just defined is the core intention of IFS therapy. And it's also like in my opinion, from like all the therapies out there, like that's the game-changing moment when the child part feels seen by the authentic self, by the self with a capital S. You referred to it even as the internal parent. When the child self feels seen and feels gratitude, when it feels like it's done its job and it's not wrong or bad, and when it feels safe.
And it feels safe by your adult self, your current self.
With your adult self. That's right.
And not shaming your childhood self for these things anymore and all the things that you did or didn't do or whatever. Because I just had a lot of shame and guilt around many different kind of stages of my life where, I went through a stage of stealing like candy bars and, stupid stuff at stores for a year and a half. And then I had a stage of lying to people. And just all these different stages. I was like, man, that's not who I want to be. And it's not who I am anymore, but you feel shame and guilt around these actions from the past. So really learning to forgive myself, learning to accept myself, learning to just fully love all of me at the different stages. Not saying it's okay what I did or stealing is okay, but saying, you know what, it's not okay, but at least you changed it at 11 years old and you stopped doing that and you started making shifts and acknowledging the growth and acknowledging the impact and all these different things. So it's been a beautiful journey of, I think I showed you the last time I saw you, I had a photo of my 5-year-old self on my phone. For the last 6 months, I had a photo of my 11-year-old self on my phone. And about 2 weeks ago, I just changed it to kind of the 16, 17-year-old self.
Beautiful. Look
on
at that
my
guy.
phone, right?
Look at that guy. So cute.
So yeah, happy little guy, right? So I'm reconnecting to the different stages of my emotional, psychological life and connecting and saying, hey, I got you at 5. I got you at 11. I got you at 16 and 17. I got you at 25. And the goal for me is to marry from all these different moments into my current present self.
That's right.
So I can be fully integrated, accepting all the parts of me in my past, and be very just clear and intentional about the actions, the thoughts, and the behaviors I want to have in the moment.
You're retrieving these child parts.
Yeah.
And in that retrieval, you're bringing them back home to you.
Yes.
And your authentic self, or self with a capital S, becomes the internal parent and the internal leader to all of these parts. And what's so beautiful is that the parts actually don't have to go away. They just become less extreme.
Exactly. Less scary.
Yeah. Yeah. So they may not be stealing, but they're still,
Right.
willing to take risks. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
There's still, there's these qualities in them that are so necessary. And they're qualities that made you who you are. And this transformational leader, 10 years of service in this podcast.
It feels like freedom is what it feels like. And I never felt free internally. And it was always like, how can I create externally the feelings that I'm going to feel more peaceful or free inside? But I'm sure like you had, different challenges for many years. One of mine was I just couldn't sleep at night. I was just like up for hours every night until a handful of years ago when I actually was able to lay down and go to sleep in like 5-10 minutes, where it would take me hours. And that was my thing. It was just like kind of constantly worrying and stressing and unsure. And it doesn't mean, I don't have to take care of life and handle situations in business and manage people and worry about the economy and the recession or whatever is happening. But it doesn't keep me up at night. I use the worry and I take the actions courageously to prepare myself. And then I can still rest at night with all the uncertainty, with all the challenges that are happening around me, and just be like, okay, I'm going to be able to handle it. I'm going to be able to take care of it and handle it like I always have, like my 5-year-old self did when he was sexually abused, like my 11-year-old self did, 16, 25, all this stuff. I was able to figure it out. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it got me here.
But the beauty is that you no longer have to handle it from a 5-year-old place. You can handle it from an adult resourced place now.
100%. And and I have no ego in thinking that I need to do it all on my own. So I've got multiple coaches in different areas of my life that are important to me to guide me, to support me, to give me feedback, to make sure that I don't feel like I have all the weight on my shoulders to figure it out 100% of the time.
Wherever you are on your path, it's perfect because, if you look at Lewis's life, you can be doing really good work in the world, and you can be doing really great healing, and you can be creating a successful business, and you can be making connections and all of the things that you were doing over the last decade or 13 years since I've known you, and still be suffering at the same time.
Yeah, 100%.
And that as long as you are in the pursuit of freedom, that's enough.
Yeah, 100%. And I think about, my friend Twitch, who just took his life a few weeks ago, about a month ago now. This guy was just so joyful, so loving, so kind, would reach out to me, check in on me, and just brought joy to people constantly. And, but a lot of people didn't know he was suffering inside and he was going through his own challenges. And there were, if I look back, there's a few moments and signs and messages he sent, but it still didn't think like, oh, he's going to be, doing this. And you just never know what people are going through and where their pain is, how painful things are. And you can still be achieving and succeeding, like you said, and putting on a joyful face and having fun in life, but suffering inside.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of us have experienced that at different stages of our life.
I think right now it's safe to say that you can just assume that everyone's suffering in some way, right? Because, and it's probably it sounds like a low vibe way to approach people, but it's actually a really compassionate way to approach people because, we are often sort of like reacting to people's attitudes and this, and it's really, where are they? They're in a part of them that's not happy, that's not healed, that's not whole, that's
Exactly.
locked up in a childhood story and all of the above. And so it doesn't mean we need to stick around for it, but we say a prayer for them. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.